So welcome to the Greater Life CoffeeCast, and with today being the pillar of happiness, I am recording this here in my polytunnel. And this is a living example to me of the importance of the power of small wins. And if you take a moment to consider anything you really deeply want to achieve, and indeed any long-lasting source of real happiness in your life, the chances are that whatever it has taken to achieve the achievement or achieve the long-lasting source of happiness has been the result of a number of compounded small wins. And yet here I am in my polytunnel looking at an overabundance just of green vegetables, chard, there's some form of cabbages, there's a load of nettles, which obviously are amazing. There's some purple sprouting broccoli, there's some mustard springing up, some lemon verbena, some nasturtium, some wasabi. And yet, my garden is definitely one area where I felt the pain of not choosing to knock the small wins off the list. And so it has got to the point, and indeed if you tune into tomorrow's home CoffeeCast, you will hear me talking about phases and compartmentalization. And small wins is an absolutely core element of this, which is that in my garden, the times that I just wouldn't go out and do 10 minutes of weeding or 10 minutes of watering led to a situation where I had an absolute jungle to contend with. That was the result of a compounded number of lacks of 10 minutes taken, right? And yet, when I really stop and pause, it becomes so obvious, like frustratingly obvious, that if we want the massive, if we want the big, if we want the huge, then we must be willing to commit to and indeed celebrate the small. And one of my favourite quotes around the idea of purpose, and of course life purpose is a major aspect of the pillar of happiness, is that your passions are grown and your purpose is created. So that rather than there being some unicorns and rainbows that come down from the sky as your passion is revealed and as your purpose is revealed to you, your purpose is the compounding of a number of small steps taken in the direction of your passion. Because before you know it, that passion has turned into a proficiency, and that proficiency is filling you with a sense of purpose. And one of the elements, of course, of the happiness pillar connects in with health, around mental health. And you may have come across the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And her recent work is all about character and indeed on the building of resilience. And she has come to the conclusion through her own research, and she's a Harvard professor, I want to say, that rather than the kind of common perception that resilience is built through like really tough times that, just force us to become more than we are, that can be an element. But actually a much more predictable marker of resilience is whether someone gets some quick wins, some like small wins to demonstrate. Let's say they're trying a new task. If they get some small wins that demonstrate early proficiency in that task, they are much more likely to stick to the challenge when things get a bit tougher and when that resilience is needed to develop mastery. Okay? So the other aspect in all of this around small wins, you may have heard me talk before on this podcast about the work of B.J. Fogg, who is a Stanford professor of behaviour change. And his work is all around how can we change our behaviour through creating new habits, what he calls tiny habits, hence small wins, right? And one of his core philosophies is that emotion creates habit. So that if we want to get in enough repetitions of a thing to turn it into a habit, the key is we have to be willing to anchor in sufficient emotion. And I know this in my own life in terms of how I've transformed my living around finances and tidiness in my house. Okay? Is that each time, even if I just like choose to not walk past a dirty dish that's on the table, or choose to, first thing in the morning, check my bank account, even if the numbers aren't looking great, I celebrate. Like, there are generally times where you will see me going, yes, right? And what I'm doing, and I see this now, like I'm flooding my system with positive neurochemistry that makes me more likely to want to do the next little step. And if I celebrate that next little step, I'm more likely to want to do the next little step after that. And so it compounds, right? That before we know it, I've put together sufficient small steps to create massive transformation. So today, if you want greater happiness, and indeed if you want greater resilience, it is not about waiting till you get the big result to then celebrate and feel happy. It is about celebrating like crazy every single step along the way. Because you know what? That big result you're seeking, that could literally be the tip of the iceberg in terms of A, what you're capable of, and B, what you really truly want. But if you don't celebrate the steps that are required, you're never going to stay the course to get to the real depths of happiness, which is actually the journey itself. A cliche, I know, but we finish there. We finish with the invitation to genuinely celebrate each step as though it were the goal itself. And if you do that, well then the goal itself becomes almost an automatic foregone conclusion. So, have a wonderful day. Here's to your happiness, and here's to celebrating the small wins.